Welcome back, and joining us with her take on today's market performance is Faheema Adia from Momentum Securities. Faheema, thank you so much for your time this evening. Perhaps let's start off with general markets action. We are seeing a recovery out in the US, markets in Europe in the green, markets here at home also in the green, and we also saw gold pulling back. What are you making of that? Are traders shrugging off tariff policy uncertainty, those US-Iran tensions as well?
Good evening, Nsoleng. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so we are starting to see some recovery, fortunately, after that sell-off we saw yesterday that was just driven by the AI disruption and the concerns that this could have broader implications on certain industries in the long term. I do think the market's showing some recovery now after somewhat of an overreaction to that. Also digesting the news from the Supreme Court ruling and the likelihood that there could be lower tariffs in place now, just depending on what happens with Trump going forward and whether that does stay at 10% or pushes up to 15%, but it's a lot better than what was initially in place. And then I think we are seeing a bit of a pullback in the gold price due to that. There's a bit of a back of a risk on sentiment. Investors are not as risk averse any longer.
All right, let's move over to some company news. Super Group delivering a 28% jump in HEPS, pointing to an upbeat showing in its dealership business. That, of course, boosted by an increased demand of those Asian and Indian cars. Investors liking the numbers. I think the last time I checked, the share price was up close to 5%. Just your reading of those numbers and the performance.
Yes, I think it was quite a good result. The market quite liked it, seeing that share price, like you said, up more than about 6%. And we're seeing some strong growth come through from the South African supply chain and the dealerships. There's also been growth in both the new and in the used vehicle market. And I think what they got right in terms of strategy was they managed to enter quite early in terms of bringing Chinese and Indian vehicles to the market, whereas some of the competitors like Motors lagged. So they really managed to get that right. And then if you look at other markets like Europe, the Spanish distribution centers also perform pretty well. The business overall is undergoing a restructure. So some of the UK businesses haven't been performing very well, but they are in the process of discontinuing some of those or disposing of it. But yeah, overall, I think it was quite a good update.
Yeah. And just on share price action, I noticed that Mr. Price is in the green after weeks of negative trade on the back of the NKD deal, of course. What does the current price action suggest? Is it just on the back of this risk on mood, or are we seeing investors perhaps buying into the dip?
Yes, so I think there's been quite a big sell-off in Mr. Price. Some of it was somewhat overdone. I do think it is looking quite undervalued at the moment. And management actually put out a communication recently about the capital markets day that they will be hosting on NKD to provide further information to the market in the next few weeks. So I think the market is also taking confidence from that and perhaps just trying to get into the share ahead of that.
It does seem like markets are coming to terms with the fact that Mr. Price is not letting up on that deal and it is moving ahead with it. Let's move over to RCL Foods, out with another trading update, warning of even deeper declines in earnings, right? We've seen pressure in the sugar unit in particular on the back of those cheap imports, right? Is that something that continues to plague the business?
Yes, definitely. I think it's been a tough period for RCL Foods in general, exposure to groceries, sugar and baking. Given that the consumer has been under a lot of pressure, there hasn't been a lot of budget for that. But like you said, that sugar business in particular has really impacted their results. Because of the stronger rand, we are seeing an influx of cheaper sugar imports into the country. And this forces RCL to have to then export their sugar into other markets at the lower international sugar price, which actually isn't sustainable for the business and also for the sugar industry as a whole in South Africa. It's a similar issue we've been seeing with Tongaat, whereby they do need the regulator to step in and to increase tariffs on those cheap sugar imports to keep our local sugar industry competitive.
And talking about keeping our sugar industry competitive, we've also seen industry players calling for the scrapping of sugar tax. Of course, we have that national budget coming up tomorrow. Perhaps let's get some of your expectations for that before I get into your stock pick.
Sure. Yeah. So I do think the fiscal outlook has improved since last year. We have seen revenue collection improving at SARS. And there's also been headway on the economic reforms. I think still much needs to be achieved with logistics and Transnet, but it does seem that we are on the right track. But I expect to see further communication on this tomorrow. But it will be important to be able to take advantage of the higher commodity pricing we're seeing now in the mining sector.
All right, let's get your stock pick. We've got about 30 seconds.
Okay. My stock pick is Valterra Platinum. So I'm expecting to see further strength here after that pullback we saw in the PGM counters. All the fundamental drivers are still intact there. Long-term supply deficits, there's industrial demand as well as retail consumption that should drive that. Valterra in particular, because it's the world's largest PGM producer, it has exposure to some very high quality, long life of mine assets. And there's also brownfield assets, which provides long-term growth opportunity. So if you look at it from a valuation perspective, it's now on a forward P of about 11 times. So I do think it offers opportunity here and long-term upside.
All right, let's leave it there. Faheema, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights with us this evening. That was Faheema Adia from Momentum Securities.